Due to the current outbreak of COVID-19, Thai Airways, Thailand's flagship airline, is reducing its international flight schedule until at least March the 27th. A limited schedule of domestic flights are still operating as normal under the airline's domestic carrier Thai Smile. Thai Airways will reduce international flights to the following destinations: to Hong Kong, 1 daily flight per week; to Manila, 1 weekly return flight; to Osaka, 1 weekly return flight; to Seoul in South Korea, again 1 weekly return flight; to Taipei, again 1 weekly return flight; and Tokyo, 3 weekly return flights; to Australia, Sydney, 1 weekly return flight; and Europe, to Copenhagen, 1 weekly return flight. Same with Frankfurt in Germany, and to London, 1 weekly return flight. Thailand's national airline has had a difficult year, with the COVID pandemic adding to the company's woes of crippling debt. The airline has had a history of top-heavy management, abuse of the free seats for executives and Thai politicians, and dodgy deals on fleet procurements. The deal that's led to so much crippling debt was the purchase of the Thai Airways Airbus A340 fleet, and later the Boeing 777 model long-range jets and the Rolls-Royce Trent 500 and 800 engines that powered the jets. A bribery admission was made by Rolls-Royce concerning the Thai Airways engine and maintenance procurement between 1991 to 2005. That deal was going to be investigated by the airline's board at the time. They were going to check if the acquisition process was transparent, how the engine acquisition process differed from the past, and who was involved in the bribery Rolls-Royce admitted to. The UK's Serious Fraud Office revealed 12 counts in which Rolls-Royce engaged in corruption or failed to prevent bribery in 7 countries, including Thailand. But the urgent 30-day investigation faded away at the time, and nothing really happened. In the meantime, the airline kept flying the gas-guzzling 4-engine planes on its long-haul routes. During last year's bankruptcy hearings, the admission was made that Thailand's national airline lost money on every single flight made by the Airbus A340s. Years of mismanagement was punctuated by the last decade of annual losses. The grounding of its fleet, brought about by the world COVID-19 pandemic, was the final straw in March last year. By July, the airline had accrued approximately 350 billion baht of debt. The airline, as in the past, ran to the Thai government for a bailout, but this time the ministers balked at another dip into Thai taxpayer pockets and decided to wash their hands of the national flagship and its mismanagement. On September the 14th last year, Thailand's bankruptcy court finally gave permission for Thai Airways to reorganise its company structure. The Thai government had sold off its controlling share, in essence allowing the crippled airline to enter full bankruptcy proceedings. Despite returning to a limited international schedule and acting as the carrier for Thai repatriates throughout the second half of last year, the majority of Thai Airways planes remain gathering dust on the ground. The airline's been selling off 34 of its older fleet and retired some of its less fuel-efficient planes. There are also thousands of disgruntled passengers who have been trying to retrieve their fares from flights cancelled after the pandemic kicked in, despite the airline still accepting bookings and fares after the airline was grounded. At some stage, pandemic allowing, Thai Airways, in a vastly different form, will again take to the skies. It will be a very different airline and likely have a very different list of owners and management.